This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for What in the World with Paul Seaburn and his sidekick, John DiNallo. And it is time for What in the World?
Yes, what in the world? That's a good question, Karen. What's the answer? No, wait, we're supposed to tell you that. That's right.
That's right, right.
Okay, well, I'm Paul Seaburn, host of What in the World, everybody. And what in the world is it? It's everybody's favorite weird news show. Real news, sometimes strange, always funny. That's our motto. We're here every week. If you're listening to us live, 3:30 Eastern Daylight Time. If you're listening to us live, that means you've found us on YouTube, I believe.
Yep.
If you're listening to us in the future on Spotify or your favorite platform, we welcome you to do that. We ask that you consider taking a look at us sometime later on YouTube because you get to see what we look like. Plus, every once in a while, we have some photos that go along with our stories that are always fun to check out. I am the host. I am the editor and head writer at mysteriousuniverse.org, which is where some of our weird news comes from. But most of it just comes from me researching the internet and finding the strangest, oddest, most unusual and fun things to talk about, because we don't want to talk about the regular news, the politics, the religion, the business, all the bad stuff that everybody else is talking about. We might like to give you an hour of nothing but fun and laughs, and hopefully
That's a lot of time.
I know that is. You're telling me. You're telling me it certainly is a lot of time, Karen, but we managed to do it every week. We managed to do it every week. And by we, I couldn't do it without my two partners in crime here. The first one, of course, is the first voice you hear in your ear. That's Karen Hale, media mogul at newclevelandradio.net, our producer and co-host. newclevelandradio.net is our platform. Great place for us, great place for a lot of other super podcasts. So go there, find out all the platforms where all the places you can download us. There's a link to our YouTube. I think there's links to other stuff there. And then also take a look at the other podcast that Karen has. And when you're done with listening to those, if you need a coach, Karen is also a coach. So check out Yes, I Can Coaching with Karen, which is also our sponsor, which we always appreciate. So that's what you get from newclevelandradio.net. That all comes from voice number one, Karen Hale. Voice number two in your other ear, or maybe if you have 3 ears, the one in the middle of your forehead. That's usually the place where my old buddy John DiNallo shows up. John is our color commentator, also our co-host and trivia expert, all around nice guy. Always has unusual things to say. So, hey, John, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well, Paul. Thanks for the big introduction. And again, looking forward to another show, and looking forward to having some fun this afternoon.
Always. That's what we like to do. Have some fun. If you're on Facebook, you can find me on Facebook, and you'll see I like to test out some of the stories and some of the jokes before the show, so you kind of get a little preview of what we might be doing on What in the World. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, or follow me, or whatever it is you have to do on Facebook. I'm also on X, the old Twitter, so I put some of the stories out there as well. I also have a book. We'll put up a photo of that in a second. You can find out all about that on my website, paulseaburn.com. So let's take a look at our logo here. There, we've got our logo. So what we like to do is talk about the weird news of the week, as I mentioned. What are we talking about this week? Oh, the first big story. Karen, this is for you. The Wienermobile, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile is
I saw that.
Yeah, it's in hot water. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to learn about how you should eat for the apocalypse. So, if you think the apocalypse is coming, we've got tips for how to eat. Where to get your flying saucer painted. I know John and I were just talking about this the other day. Where's a good place to get your flying saucer detailed, and if you need some things popped out, well, I've got the place, John, so hang on.
Okay.
Story about two famous old bus drivers. This is an interesting story this week about a world record setting bus driver. some smoking Olympians. The Olympics start next week. So we've got an Olympics story. Some smoking Olympians are lighting up the news. Plus, we got more odd news. We've got trivia. John's got a great sport, as always, for us every week. And then before we go, we always play everybody's favorite weird news game, Bluff the Co-Hosts. So let's take a look at what we got lined up here. Well, let's see. I mentioned my book. Let's put my book up here for a second. What would you say to a naked space alien? Collection of my favorite UFO and alien encounter stories, all the fun ones that I've encountered while working for Mysterious Universe. So you can find out more about that. It's another good time. It's a great thing to read in the bathroom. The stories are about the average length of a trip to the bathroom. So perfect thing to put there. You can find it on Amazon. Just look my name up on Amazon. Also, if you go to paulseaburn.com, I have a link there as well. And I think my next slide there has information on all of that. So, okay. So I mentioned Karen and I and John, I think, came in on this as well. We've done Wienermobile stories over the years about the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. When we found out that Karen, that had been Karen's dream job for ages, to be a driver. I forget what they call them, Wiener experts or something on Wiener. Anyways, hot doggers. That's what they call them. They call them hot doggers. The drivers. Well, the Wienermobile was in the news this week, and this was just unbelievable. So here's a photo for those of you who are watching us on YouTube. So one of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobiles, I think there's about 6 or 7 of them now, was driving on I-294 near Chicago in Illinois on the Tri-State Tollway near Oak Brook when it flipped over, and the freeway was shut down for more than an hour while they cleaned it up. No one was injured, thank goodness, but police said that when it came to rollover accident, this one with the Wienermobile was the worst. John, I got a horn for you there. It was the worst.
Oh,
Missed that initially, Paul, but okay.
The accident was blamed on another car that the Wienermobile had just passed, and the driver then tried to catch up. Got the horn there? You got the horn there, Paul, please? Again?
Very good.
Wear it out, John, because this is the kind of story I really relish.
Oh my gosh, you're on a roll there, Mr. Seaburn.
Very good, John.
I put this on Facebook, and not only was I on a roll, I was humbled by the comments that so many people added to it. So I'll give some of their names because some of them are regular listeners of the show. Ken, I know Ken is a regular listener. He's over on the East Coast in Virginia. Ken said, "Hope the weather outside wasn't too chilly." Tamara, who is also a regular listener of the show, she said, "So glad you mustered up the courage to write this article."
Okay.
Janet, she tuned in. She says, "I just came to catch up on the news." Tony asked, "Was his wiener injured?" Tony, Don, also a regular listener, Don said, "Funny how so few listeners, how so few newspapers were able to catch up with this story."
Wow.
Ray, who is also a listener, he said, "Frankly, I don't care." And an old friend of mine who I hear once in a great while, Jana, comedian she's in Austin now. She said no honk dogs tonight. So I'm not sure what a honk dog is, but I want to give her a shout out as well because I don't hear from her very often. It's always nice to hear.
Okay.
Anyway, nice. Yeah. How about that? So there was another photo of this particular photo that we're looking at here is the poor little Wienermobile on its side. They eventually put it on a lift, to tow it away because it was not drivable. So I don't have any more jokes, John. So,
well, let me ask you this though. This is important. Is it back in action? Is this Wienermobile
I'm
back
sure
in action
this
to your
just
knowledge?
happened yesterday. Yeah, this just happened yesterday. Oh, you can't take the Wienermobile. The Wienermobiles are almost indestructible. So kind of like the Wieners. Um, the
Okay.
So I've got some more. I've got some more stories on wieners coming up soon. So hang in there if you want more wiener news for the week. Okay, Olympics are coming up. John, are you ready for the Olympics? They're the opening
Actually,
ceremony.
looking forward to it. It should be good. There's a lot of prep going on. I mean, a lot of media coverage on pre-events per se. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Definitely.
Yeah. I just saw. Now this isn't. This is going off script for a second here. But what's her name? Oh, now I can't remember her
Simone
name.
Biles.
What's her name?
Simone Biles.
No, the singer, the skinny singer from Las Vegas who has the bone disease.
Now I can't think of her name.
Yeah, the famous. She's from Canada.
Yeah.
Celine Dion.
Yes, thank you.
Celine Dion. Thank you, John. I knew you'd come. They just said that she's feeling well enough that she's going to be singing at the opening ceremonies. I think so.
Good for her.
But that'll be nice, if you're.
Excuse me.
Okay, speaking of the opening ceremonies, so they're coming up already. So this is a story. Shoko Miyata, who is the captain of Japan's women's gymnastics team and the number one gymnast in Japan, has been sent home from the Olympics. There's a photo of her right there. She's been sent home from the Olympics for, guess what? For smoking cigarettes. I mean, this sounds like high school here, but this is the Olympics. They actually kicked her off the team for smoking cigarettes, which she said she did to calm her nerves because of the pressure of being at the Olympics. On the other hand, the Jamaican team is giving bonuses to gymnasts who smoke nicotine instead of pot. It's a problem with them. Her coach actually thought that he was watching her practice the flow routine, but it turns out she was looking for a butt that she had dropped and she didn't want anybody to see. And I thought they should have kept her around because she knows her way around a vape so much that she could have at least carried the torch for the team. Carried the torch for the team. There we go.
Yes, got it.
Good.
Japan, believe it or not, has a very high rate of what they call combustible tobacco use among its citizens, with 16.7% of Japanese citizens smoke cigarettes regularly. 16.7%. To put that in perspective, in the United States, it's only 11.5%. So that's a good 5% more in Japan. Because they still believe the best way to escape Godzilla is to put up a huge smoke screen. So now, John, I thought of you when I was researching this story. There was a time in the not too distant past where athletes smoked all the time. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I do. Sure. In fact, also NFL football players, were known to, smoke cigarettes. Sure.
And they smoked, they drank, they chased, whatever they chased. Here, speaking of the NFL, here's an NFL player right here. This is a famous photo. I don't know if you've ever seen this one, John. You might be able to take a look at the helmet on the bench, and that tells you what team he played for. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, that's Len Dawson, the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. He actually won a Super Bowl, for Kansas City.
Yeah, this is a photo of him smoking on the bench.
I have a quick story for you on this.
Oh, sure.
My brother Bob, who travels a lot, has traveled through Kansas City a number of times. There's a huge photo. This photo is really displayed in the Kansas City airport.
Oh,
No
really?
kidding. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow. I've been to that airport. I don't remember seeing that, but
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So here's Len Dawson. So we've got a football player, professional football player smoking. Then we've got this guy. The Tour de France just ended. This is a photo from a number of years ago. It's black and white of a guy competing in the Tour de France with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Wow.
I don't know if he won or lost, but it's France, so I think it's the law, or at least it was for a while. Now you'll love this one. This is the NBA. So here is Bob Cousy, probably one of the greatest NBA players in the history of the sport. This is an ad for Kent cigarettes with Bob Cousy smoking. More scientists and educators smoke Kent, including Bob Cousy, who says Kent is my favorite too. And then, since we were talking about the Olympics, here's another ad. This is what's his name? George Roden, who was in the 1952 Olympics, won the 400 meter, was the 400 meter gold medal winner. Also promoting Kent. I guess Kent should have been the promoted itself as the cigarette of Olympians and athletes.
Or the official cigarette of the Olympics.
yeah. Can you believe this? And there were more. Just Google athletes and cigarette. I didn't want to put up what's his name? John Daly, the golfer, professional golfer. I mean, there's photos of him everywhere, smoking, drinking beer on the course, you name it, he's doing it on the course. But I thought that was interesting, how times have changed. You don't really.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, to where this poor Olympic athlete is kicked off the team. And you know what it is? She's 19, and the legal age for smoking in Japan is 20. So that was the other reason why they kicked her off the team, is that not only was she smoking, but she was smoking illegally. So, it's interesting to learn about the rest of the world sometimes, which is what we like to do on What in the World, obviously.
Absolutely.
And the customs that other countries have that people have lived by. Okay, so from our What Could Possibly Go Wrong file, a research team from the University of Tokyo has been gathering microorganisms from South Africa. They dug a hole 1,500 feet deep, and they've been pulling dirt out, and they are finding microorganisms that are 2 billion years old, and they're trying to bring them back to life. 2 billion year old microbes, they want to bring them back to life. What does a 2 billion year old organism eat?
What does a 2 billion year organism look like?
I have a photo of one here, John. I have a photo. Thank you for asking.
Good.
Here's a 2 billion year old.
It looks like Granny.
Yeah,
That's Granny Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies. She was certainly old, and she was micro. I couldn't find a photo of the microorganisms.
Oh,
so I thought I'd put Granny up there. I don't know.
But that could be dangerous, bringing them back and we could end up with dinosaurs, walking all over us.
Exactly. The how does something live for 2 billion years without getting bored? Without they don't have capability. and 2 billion years old. So they haven't had human contact in 2 billion years. Then a human shows up. What's the first thing they ask the human? Hey, did the Guardians win the World Series yet?
Oh, that's a good joke. That's a good one.
Our Guardians fans, yeah, or the Indians, yeah, same thing. What do they do without getting bored? They have real tiny little puzzles that they make for year after year. So, and it was only 1,500 feet deep. They're finding these 2 billion year old microbes. So I'm not digging any more bushes out of my yard, because I don't know. I don't want to dig up anything like that. Okay. So here's what you need to live for 2 billion more years. If you're afraid that there's an apocalypse coming and you want to survive, the place to go is Costco. Costco now has this thing. It's called the ReadyWise Emergency Food Supply Bucket, and it contains 150 freeze-dried food servings with a shelf life of 25 years. This one shows 84, but they've got a whole variety of them. The one that the article was about, it was 150. The freeze-dried foods include teriyaki rice, pasta Alfredo, potato pot pie, and apple cinnamon cereal. So you buy a bucket of it, you put it in the closet or in your in the garage or whatever you think you're going to live out the apocalypse. And when the big one hits, you hopefully you've pried that thing open, and you got 150 meals to eat. Although potato pot pie doesn't sound like something I'd like to be eating for the next 25 years, let alone the Olympics, the apocalypse. I'm sorry, the apocalypse. I think eating pot pie for the eternity is one of the rings in Dante's
Inferno.
Inferno.
And then apple cinnamon cereal. Not my favorite cereal. John, do you like apple cinnamon cereal?
No, I'm gonna say as a rule, no. If there wasn't anything else to eat, I would eat that. But no, I'm not a fan of apple cinnamon.
Well, that's what we're saying. It's the apocalypse. This is all you got. The Apple Jacks. That's what they
I
are.
guess you have to have that. I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Remember Apple Jacks? I had to
do.
look it up. They still sell Apple Jacks. Kellogg's made them.
It came in a green box, a bright green
Yes,
box.
they did.
Taken, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. There's a big green box right there. A bright green box.
There it is. Oh,
Sweet cereal with apple and cinnamon. Yeah, they originally were orange, and then they started adding the green ones for green apple fans, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
They were invented. I found this interesting for fans of our show. They know that John and I are fraternity brothers from college. They were introduced as Apple-Os in 1965. They were developed by an intern at Kellogg's, who was William Tilley was his name. He was a frat guy. He was a member of the Delta Upsilon Technology chapter at MIT, and he's doing an internship at Kellogg's, and he invents Apple Jacks. What did we invent?
We didn't invent that. That's for sure, Paul.
I remember one cereal we invented, Beerios. Remember Beerios? We used to put beer on Cheerios when that was all we had to eat. And
when push comes to shove, right? Sure.
So for some reason, they didn't catch on. Kellogg's didn't like that. So you can buy an entire pallet of those containers for $2,500. So if you're planning to live out the apocalypse for years, 5,400 servings. I would get so bored eating that. And you know what? What if you're the only person left or the only family left? You're going to gorge. You're going to eat the good stuff first. You're going to eat the Apple Jacks first and leave the potato pies for the end. And then the worst part, if you order online, it says online shipping takes 10 to 15 business days. Now, if you see the mushroom cloud, it's already too late to order.
Well, you better order now.
Yeah.
Order it.
Online shipping. Yeah, John, you order now. Order now before it's too late. Okay, an ad on Facebook Marketplace in Argentina is offering a used flying saucer. Believe it or not, this ad was on Facebook. Used flying saucer for $380. This is an actual photo that we're looking at here that was attached to the marketplace. Looks like a flying saucer. It's kind of pinkish, to be honest with you. The write-up said it has made 6 trips to the moon and 2 to Mars. I don't know if I would want to sit in that all the way to Mars. And it can absorb 17 cows per minute, because that's one of the reasons why flying saucers come, is to abduct cows and analyze them to take hamburgers back to their planet, I guess. Which sounds to me, 17 cows a minute sounds more like this is a food truck. This is an alien food truck. Sucking them up and making barbecue to take to Mars or wherever they're going to take it. 17 cows per minute, John. I believe that is about how many they serve at Golden Corral at lunchtime every week.
Oh,
yeah.
That sounds about right, Paul.
That's right. Or it's also one of the records of Joey Chestnut, 17 cows a minute.
Wow.
Which could be why he got out of eating hot dogs. I like this. They had a motor and no smoke. I think that would be good. I would love to see a flying saucer with smoke flying out of it. You travel 20 light years to get to Earth. And just as you're coming in for a landing, you blow a head gasket or something and smoke starts going out. It
Oh,
makes
boy.
me feel better, and then they land and they're looking for an auto zone. That's the first thing they ask you. You need some rings. So now I mentioned where to go to get a paint job. This flying saucer that we're looking at does look like it needs a paint job. It's got some nicks and scratches on it. You know where you go to get a paint job for your flying saucer? You go to Earl Scheib, $29.95.
Yeah.
Any flying saucer, any color. I saw the ad. The reason why, I remembered the sign for Earl Scheib, and we'll talk about Earl Scheib in a second. Here's a sign. Earl Scheib is still in business, but the icon, the mascot, or whatever you want to call it, was actually the Earth with a ring around it, like Saturn, and cars spinning around the ring. So it almost looks like a flying saucer. I never really put two and two together there until I looked it up. You remember Earl Scheib, John?
Oh, of course. Again, with that the moniker $29.95. I mean, that was their advertising slogan forever.
So
That's right. That's right.
We had
Karen?
a car. I had a car in my first marriage that was like a maroon color, but it was sort of fading. So my husband at the time said to me, take it to Earl Scheib, pick out a color that is comparable and have them paint it. So I did, except their comparable color to the maroon color was a pinkish purple.
Oh,
So
no.
my husband picked up the car. Needless to say, I was not his best friend. And maybe that's why we ended up getting divorced back then. I don't know, but Earl Scheib did us in.
I'll tell you what, I'm surprised my parents didn't get divorced over Earl Scheib, because my dad had a Pontiac Catalina and it needed a paint job. And he went to Earl Scheib and I think he got the $29.95 job. And they did paint it, but they didn't tape over the chrome. So they painted over the chrome. The trim. Yeah. Oh, he was upset. I know my mom was upset, but there was nothing he could do about it after that. It's, you read the fine print and it says any car, any color, you get what you paid for. So this guy, Earl Scheib, he started in California back in 1937. And he worked in a garage. He was a mechanic, and people used to come in looking for paint jobs, and they didn't do paint. So he would open the place up at night after it was closed, and he would paint cars in the back. And he became so popular that he ended up opening his own shop, Earl Scheib, and eventually was franchised across the country. I mean, he was well known around the country. $29.95, no ups, no extras. Paint any car, any color. What else did he say? Didn't include body work, and they said the paint would start chipping after a year, so they didn't do much prep either. 225 of these were at his peak around the United States, and now the corporation is out of business. So if you see an Earl Scheib, there's one on Pearl Road in Parma, by the way, in Northeast Ohio. It's an independently owned, and they were still allowed to keep the Earl Scheib name. So I don't know how much it is now. I think it might be close to $89 or $99.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah, which is still dirt cheap. I mean, I'm sure a $99 paint job would probably still chip after a year.
Yes.
Anyway.
Sure.
So it's only good for a year, though, Paul and Karen, right? Is that what you're saying?
Just about, yeah.
It's only guaranteed for a year.
Yeah. Well, $29.95. Go back and get another one.
Right.
So, headline on the New York Times this week: cows are the new puppies. I couldn't believe it. I said, if cows are the new puppies, I'm going to go to PetSmart and see if they have giant shovels that they're selling for or backhoes. But this is true. Cows, we've talked about cow hugging. People are buying. They're not just going to petting zoos, but they're actually buying cows just so they can hug them. But because cows are so big, obviously, look at this lady. The head of this cow is as big as she is.
Yeah.
So there's new thing called mini cows or teacup cows. And this is a newborn cow that a person is holding in their hand. Tiny little thing. I mean, first thing I heard, somebody told me if they're looking into buying a teacup cow. They must be taking too many gummies. They need to cut back on their gummies if they think a cow fits in a teacup. But the largest one, once they grow up, largest is 48 inches tall. They can be as small as 36 inches tall. So for about a yard high at the peak. But my theory on this is that this is a plot by vegans to get us to stop eating cows because by making them cute. They're so cute and so cuddly. Who would want to make a burger out of that cute little thing? Here's another one in case you don't think they're cute. This is one that the person's taken for a walk. It's the size of a big dog, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, really. Hard to really discern that it's a cow.
And they seem to have a lot more hair than a cow.
I wish I knew what kind this was. I thought it was a heifer, but it's too small, so maybe it's a heifer.
I'm glad you went to the horn quickly on that one, Paul. Very good.
Now this teacup thing didn't work with miniature pigs because people were buying miniature pigs because they were oh so cute and they just be tiny little animals and they grew up to be big humongous pigs anyways. I thought if these little mini pigs, they should sell them as like a single serving of bacon. Although people like me and John, to me, a single serving of bacon is an entire pack of Sugardales, which
oh, yes. I'm a big fan of bacon. Absolutely.
Speaking of which, you remember that brand name, Sugardales?
Yes.
Sure.
Sugardales we like to plug our local company. Sugardale is actually headquartered in Canton, Ohio, just down the road from here. They started out making conies. Before they made bacon, Sugardale conies were their product. I might have a picture of one. There we go. Sugardale tender conies, big billboard with a guy eating Sugardale conies. The name Coney, since we talk about Coney Island all the time in the hot dog eating contest, I looked it up. The name Coney is Dutch, comes from the word Coney Island, which is the Dutch word for Coney Island. So Coney is actually means rabbit. So there were rabbits on the island. So they named the island after rabbits, but it ended up being the name of hot dogs because that's what Coney Island became famous for. Oh. The guy who invented the Coney or who popularized the Coney was a guy by the name of Nathan Handwerker, the Nathan from Nathan's Hot Dogs, Polish-Jewish immigrant. He and his wife borrowed $300 and they started the first hot dog stand on Coney Island, and the rest is history. Yes. Coney is now owned, it's a registered trademark of Nathan's. So no one can Sugardale can't call Coney's anymore. So they call them hot dogs. I think I have a picture of some. Oh no, that's our next story there. So there's our Sugardale Coney story. All right. We've all ridden on buses. We've all ridden on school buses in our lifetime. World record story this week. 94-year-old Jim Opegard from Minnesota just set the Guinness World Record for the world's oldest bus driver. He is 94 years old. He is still driving a school bus every single day. Yeah. He also holds the Guinness record for the most time hearing kids sing Magic Bus. Yeah. And the most time saying, "Don't make me turn this bus around." So this is what amazed me. This guy was a regular city bus driver, probably in Minneapolis for 20 years. That wasn't enough. He retired at 65. He immediately got bored. So he signed up to start driving school buses. And he's been driving school buses ever since.
Wow.
And I was trying to figure out how could someone fall so in love with driving a bus? And then I realized he probably likes telling people where to get off. And John, you know, at a regular job, you can't tell people where to get off.
You're
But on a
right.
bus,
You cannot. You have to absorb that. That's right. Mhm.
so he says he stays in shape. He exercises for 45 minutes every day. He also runs for 30 minutes every day while looking over his shoulder. So, you know, he's used to looking, you know, heading forward while looking backwards. My favorite old bus driver is Crankshaft. So for those of you who no longer read the comics, uh, Crankshaft, and this is again another local plug. Crankshaft is a comic strip written by Tom Batiak is his name, and I forget what Mr. Davis's name is. He's the artist. He's a local guy. He's the guy who invented Funky Winkerbean, and Crankshaft was a bus driver on the Funky Winkerbean comic strip, and he was so popular that they spun him off, and he's been doing him for the past 30 years. Dan Davis is his name. So this guy, Tom Batiak, went to Kent State, 1969, very famous year at Kent State. Well, he was a year before the shooting. He got a BA in fine arts, and he taught junior high in Elyria, Ohio. And while he was there, he began drawing a comic strip, and he sent it to the Elyria paper, and the rest is history. They picked it up, and it became Funky Winkerbean.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
quite a few. The guy who did Calvin and Hobbes was from the Cleveland area. So, you know, it's a hotbed for comic strip artists. Don't know why. Maybe it's something in the water.
Do they
Okay.
still create comic strips?
Oh, you mean like create, like draw by hand, or?
No, I mean, do the newspapers, because I didn't even know there was a newspaper
Oh,
anymore.
yeah. I read. Yes, I still subscribe. You know, being a writer, I still support my fellow writers by subscribing to magazines, and I subscribe to the Plain Dealer.
Okay.
Yeah, they have on during the week they have 4 pages of comic strips. So
Okay.
so controversial. You know, if they drop some comic strip, like they dropped Nancy. Nancy's been around for like 130 years. They
Wow.
dropped Nancy. There were people that were complained about them dropping Nancy. So, you know,
Okay.
it's a very, people developed an emotional attachment, like soap operas, to their comic strips.
Okay.
We also develop emotional attachments to our musicians, and Bruce Springsteen, very famous musician, was in the news. According to Forbes magazine, Bruce Springsteen is now worth $1.1 billion. $1.1 billion. That's how much he's worth. His lifestyle has changed from "Baby, we were born to run" to "Baby, we were born to run up a tab." His song 10th Avenue Freeze Out is now Madison Avenue Freeze Out. He used to want a girl in a pink Cadillac. Now he wants the singer Pink in a pink Cadillac because he can afford her. John, I know you're a big fan of Pink's music. That's Pink right there.
I see her. Wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah, John. But whenever I see John, he's always humming a Pink song. You know, he loves. Anyways, $1.1 billion. That, you know, that's he got it. You know, he sold part of his catalog, and he wrote a book, and they just, all of that hit all at the same time, and you know, just like that, almost overnight, he was a billionaire. So
Wow.
now this is a show that I was a big fan of. 24. Variety reports that 20th Century Studios and Imagine Entertainment are working on a new version of the show 24. There's Jack Bauer, better known as Kiefer Sutherland. He was a star. They're going to bring him back as Jack Bauer, but you know, Kiefer's not as old as, I mean, he's not as young as he was back in those days. So you know, it used to be a 24-hour. It was 24 hours was the reason why it's called 24 hours. Now it's going to be 24, but not necessarily in a row. Can't keep up with. He's so old. He killed the bad guys by telling them stories of the old show and boring them to death. That's how old he's so old, John. His main vehicle on the show is a bulletproof mobility scooter. That's how old he is.
Wow.
He's so using martial arts he goes up to the bad guys and he says, "Hey, your shoe's untied," and then he punches them. Were you a fan of 24, John?
Yeah, pretty good show actually. Yeah, very entertaining. Very entertaining.
I'm not big on violent shows, but I always liked 24. The problem with 24 was they killed off everybody. Everybody he fell in love with, his relatives, his wives, his girlfriends, his bosses. They killed everybody off except Chloe, who was the computer geek on the show. They kept her. She says she won't come back unless he signs a non-dismemberment agreement that she's allowed to live through the entire series. So I hope she does. I hope she does. I really like Chloe. Okay, another accident in the news. A tractor trailer overturned on Interstate 440 in Raleigh, North Carolina, spilling, this is sad for some people, thousands of gallons of steak sauce and stopping traffic for hours while the ramp was completely covered with steak sauce. Police say they finally cleaned up the mess, but they asked motorists to avoid the area because the ramp was still a little tender from all that steak sauce.
Get the horn up for that one, Paul, please. Thank you.
Steak sauce, but it was steak sauce and teriyaki marinade. That's what was on the truck. Teriyaki marinade. So the place, between the steak sauce and the teriyaki, it smells like the bathroom at a Panda Express.
No.
Yeah. He was actually, they think that he was racing another steak sauce truck, which would make them Formula A1 drivers.
Please.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
They were going over it gets worse. They were going over the speed limit. They asked the cop how fast they were going, and he said the radar said it actually hit Heinz 57. So it was pretty fast. Steak sauce. John, do you use steak sauce?
No, actually, previously I used to use it quite a bit, and over the years, I really kind of thought that it overshadows the taste of a good steak or a good cut of meat. So
it's kind of gone out of favor. That's true. It's kind of gone out of favor. It was brown. I always wondered what was in steak sauce. It was just this brown sauce. It was actually a mix of tomatoes, vinegar, raisins, and anchovies of all things. And then they colored it brown. And you put it on the most expensive item on the menu, which is the steak, which never really seemed to make sense. But I guess they sold an awful lot of it, enough to fill up, and they're still selling it because the semi trailer was full of steak sauce. So
all
right, what goes with steak is beer. So Munich is the home of Germany's world famous Oktoberfest, the original location of the Oktoberfest beer festival. This year, Oktoberfest in Munich is opening their first alcohol-free beer garden. After the centuries of Oktoberfest, they are finally opening an alcohol-free beer garden. Now, here's a little known fact. The German word for an alcohol-free beer garden is das Desert, because that's where normally if there's no beer, it must be a desert. The alcohol-free beer garden is a good way to make sure Germany never gets invaded by another country. Because who wants to go to Germany if there's no beer, right? Other than sausages, I guess. I think that's why Martin Luther started his own church way back in the 1600s, because the Pope wanted him to try alcohol-free wine, and he said, no, we can't do that. That's just so he started the Lutheran Church. I don't know, John. Can you verify that?
I really don't. I can't, Paul. No, I don't have any. I have no reference point on that. But I'll have to do some more research, and I'll get you.
No, that's okay. You don't need to do that. We need you working on sports. Okay, we got one more story here. Cathay Pacific Airways flight attendant. So Cathay Pacific is a big Japanese airline. This poor flight attendant was stuck holding the restroom door, one of the restroom doors, closed or opened, but holding it in place on a flight for 6 16 hours. She was not allowed to move. She held it for 16 hours because it broke shortly after takeoff. They were leaving Japan to go to, or Hong Kong to go to JFK in New York. So long flight, overseas flight. 16 hours. The poor woman had to stand there holding the broken door. And what broke the door, the airline decided to serve breakfast burritos, which they never did. And, one person goes in, next thing you know, boom, the door gets blown off and the poor flight attendant had to hold it on. I held the door for 16 hours once. I don't know if I ever told this story. I took one of my nieces to a Taylor Swift concert and we were right first in line. And I opened the door and I'm hoping for a guy to come through to take over for me. 16 hours later, there's still women going through, women after women after women. That's what happens when you go to Taylor Swift. John, I don't think have you been to a Taylor Swift concert yet?
No, I have not. And quite frankly, I have no interest to attend one.
Did you know? I would think you would have interest because her boyfriend is that Kelsey,
right?
Football player. Yeah, you might get it. You might get his autograph.
I don't know if it'd be worth me going to one of those concerts just to get his autograph, to be frank with you. So that's just
really you would put up with Taylor Swift just to get Travis Kelce's autograph?
No, I don't think I would. The more I think of it, Paul, I definitely wouldn't do it. Nothing against Travis Kelce or Taylor Swift. It's just something I'm not interested in doing.
I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, I think we must have come to. Oh yeah, we have. We've come to the end of the news portion of What in the World. Real news, sometimes strange, always funny, leads every week into What in the World of Sports with John DiNallo, where he talks about real sports that are sometimes strange and sometimes funny. Every week we challenge John. John, come up with a sport that fits our theme. Really, really, really strange and yet fun. And John manages to find one every week. This week's sport is no exception. I think you'll recognize this one, but you're probably going to learn a lot more about the sport than you ever wanted to know. John, I got your photos lined up. Take it away.
Sounds good, Paul. Thank you. So our sport this week is, Paul alluded to, is one that you may have competed in if you've ever gone to a company picnic. And that sport is three-legged racing or three-legged running. Let me explain. Three-legged running involves two runners who run as one. The left leg of one runner is tied to the right leg of the other runner, or they are sometimes placed together, believe it or not, in a sack. They then compete against other three-legged pairs to cross the finish line first. Three-legged running records were actually officially verified by different national athletic organizations before falling, no pun intended, under the International Amateur Athletics Federation standardized track and field categories. So there's an actual...
You're telling us that there's actually records for three-legged running?
There is, yes. And again, and it's quite a stringent organization in terms of making sure that the categories that people compete in, are adhered to. There are several three-legged running events that take place. For the sprint distances, competitors must be tied securely together at both the thighs and ankles of one leg. At the ankles, there may be an interval not exceeding 4 inches. So again, these regulations are strictly enforced.
Wow, you can have a little bit of play between them.
Sure.
Yeah.
For longer distances, the competitors are tied at the ankles only. So you don't have quite the same restriction as you did for the shorter races. Competitors in any event, they must finish with the fastenings intact, or they're not going to be qualified as a competitor in trying to win the race.
Wow.
Now, in order to compete in either a marathon or half marathon three-legged race, it must be an organized official race with a verified course beforehand.
Wow, a marathon, three-legged marathon.
Can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait till you folks hear this. So here are some record times for several events. For 50 yards, Harry Hillman and Lawson Robertson from the USA completed the race in 1905 in New York at the games of the 13th Regiment Heavy Artillery Athletics Association in 6 seconds.
Wow, 6 seconds. That I mean,
Seconds,
that's
50
what-
yards. Sure.
Yeah.
Now, for
What you
50
wanted.
meters, right?
Yeah.
Somewhat comparable. For 50 meters, men's competition, Dirk Lubeck and Thomas Raab from Germany set the record of 6.6 seconds in 1986 in Berlin.
Wow.
For 50 meters, women's competition, Sabine Roos and Greta Zoffel of Germany set the record of 8 seconds, also in 1986 and also in Berlin.
Amazing. Amazing.
Now, for 1 mile, Casey Williams and Mike Price from the USA set the record of 7 minutes 50 seconds in 2013.
Under 8 minutes.
Under
Running
8 minutes, yes. Now,
wow.
for the men's marathon, which of course I think we all know it's 26 miles, Damian Thacker and Luke Simmons from Great Britain set the record of 3 hours, 7 minutes, and 57 seconds at the 2016 London Marathon.
So almost 3 hours. That is unbelievable. That
It
is
is. For the women's marathon, Sarah Dungeon and Victoria Carter of Great Britain set the record at 3 hours, 47 minutes, and 19 seconds.
Wow.
Finally, in the 24-hour event, Gary Shaughnessy and Andy Tucker of Great Britain set the record covering 72.15 miles on October 9th and 10th, 2021 in Silchester in the UK.
24 hours running.
Right.
They were running in a circle around a track, but 72 miles. That is just unbelievable.
It is
Wow.
unbelievable. Now, in closing, three-legged racing is a perfect way to have fun at a picnic. But these records show it is also a serious sport. And if you're single, it's also a great way to see what it's like to be married. There's a couple
Very
happy
true.
couples, right? Look at these happy couples right here.
Oh yeah, we've been looking at some photos of people in three-legged races, and Karen is laughing at my last photo, which is couples. This looks like a business event because they're in suits, they're in business attire, men and women tied together running the three-legged race.
Yep.
And you're right. If you've ever run with your spouse or your girlfriend in a three-legged race, you learn an awful lot about them. You lose.
How funny. Oh, wow. Now, is this going to become an Olympic sport?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I unfortunately don't have any information on that, Karen, to pass along to you at this point.
I can answer that because I did some research on obscure Olympic sports, and there was a rumor for years that in the 1900s they did a three-legged race exhibition at the 1900 Olympics, and they were considering it as an Olympic sport. But some years later, Snopes or somebody checked it out, and they said that was only a rumor, that there was they never seriously considered three-legged racing for. But at those speeds, wow, just a little over 3 hours for a marathon. I'd like to see that. I think that'd be interesting. Wow, that's just unbelievable. All right, great sport, John. One we can all relate to, one that we've all participated in, I'm sure.
Well, the sack race, sure, of course. The sack race is pretty common. Yeah,
sack race. Yeah, that's what I thought, because that's what we used to do. Is we would get a burlap. People don't even know what a burlap sack is anymore. I don't even know if you can get one somewhere. But we didn't tie our legs together. We just each person put one leg in the sack, and then you held the sack up and you attempted to
on
run.
the ground.
Exactly. All right, John, great sport. Thanks so much for that one.
You're welcome, Paul and Karen.
Three-legged racing. Okay, so what I always this is a sport that's been around for a long time. And I always mention that John and I went to college together. We were in a fraternity together. We participated in a lot of weird sports and weird activities, I should say, while we were in the fraternity. We actually participated in a three-legged race while we were in college, John. Do you remember doing that?
No, you have to refresh my memory again, Paul. I hope you have a photo or two to
But
hopefully
I
bring
always
my
say,
memory
yeah,
back.
John was much smarter than I was back in those days. And the older members of the frat, they would always pick on us and set us up. So they told us that we were going to be participating in a three-legged race and we should get ready. So John, of course, he did his research and he was all set to do this thing with tying the legs together. I, of course, did not do any research. So instead, I went to KFC and I got 3 chicken legs. And so this is me running with 3 legs. And there was another fraternity brother there slightly behind me who must have heard me talking about the 3 legs and didn't want to get involved with John doing it the right way. So there you have it, the 3-legged race, courtesy of Delta Alpha Theta, our old fraternity. And if he's listening, we had a chance, John and I had a chance to visit with one of our regular listeners and also one of our other fraternity brothers, Dan, who was in town last week. So Dan, if you're listening, that one's for you too. And on that note, let's get right to the final portion of our show. Oh, so many people can't wait for this part of the show, and that is Bluff the Co-Host, everybody's favorite weird news game. Real simple game to play, obviously. If our listeners like it, it better be simple. But it's also simple for us as well. We have 3 stories. Similar to the ones we've been talking about all afternoon. One big difference: those stories were real. These stories may be real, may be a bluff, and it's up to John and Karen and all of you playing out there to decide: is it real? Is it a bluff? Wagering is allowed, so place your bets. John and Karen, put your hands on the buzzer. I already filed my papers here, so I need to bring it back, and let's get right to story number 1. The Miami Marlins and the Tampa Bay Rays are the only Major League Baseball teams named after fish, but an amateur team in the Dominican Republic may change their name to something more aquatic too, after one of their recent games was called on account of raining fish. The falling fish happened so quickly that a few of the players actually caught some in their gloves and hats before running off the field. The grounds crew did not have a tarp for carp, so they simply waited until the fish rain was over, collected the fish in buckets, and gave them to any fans who managed to stick around. The game was called on account of fish and will be replayed in August when the first 5,000 fans will receive fish bobbleheads. Okay, so the baseball game in the Dominican Republic called on account of fish because it was a fish rain. Real or bluff? Karen, we'll start with you.
Well, this sounds like a science fiction movie or like Sharknado, but somebody told me that the hurricanes can cause that. So I'm going to say it's true.
Oh, okay. All right. Karen says it's true. John, how about you?
I'm not sure on this one, but I'm going to say it's a bluff. Especially with the part about the fish bobbleheads. I mean, really, people are going to attend a game so they can get a fish bobblehead. I just don't see it. I would. Karen, you would? Okay. All right. Okay. I understand. But no, I'm going to say it's a bluff.
So that's interesting. That's interesting logic there. Karen says that she has heard about fish rain, whereas John says, no, nobody would collect a fish bobblehead. So making decisions based on that. Let's check. So Karen says it's real. John says it's a bluff. Let's check with the judges. And the judges say, congratulations to John, but we'll give a half a point to Karen because she is right. Fish rain itself is a real thing, and it's caused by hurricanes and tornadoes and all kinds of things.
Oh, okay.
But there's no record of any baseball games being called on account of fish.
Okay.
It might happen eventually, though, folks.
Okay.
That's right. And you heard it here first on What in the World. Okay, so the score is 1-1.5. We'll give Karen a half. for remembering those stories. So let's get right to story number 2. Artificial intelligence may not be a problem for you yet, but if you use an Amazon Alexa smart speaker, you may become a victim of artificial flatulence. Many customers are complaining that Alexa is waking them up in the middle of the night with the sound of loud farts, and just telling Alexa to stop doesn't work. Turning the device off and on is a temporary fix, but Amazon says that this is a sign someone may have logged into your Amazon account and set up a routine to play fart noises in the middle of the night. Deleting the routine will fix the problem temporarily, but the company also recommends getting rid of the friend who set it up. You may have to do this more than once because Alexa makes fart noises to commands like "let it rip." Amazon apologizes for the incontinent inconvenience and says its techs are working on a solution. Okay, so people with Alexa are being woken in the middle of the night by Alexa making fart noises, which are difficult to get rid of. Real or bluff? Let's start with John.
Wow, this is really a weird story to say the least. I'm going to say it's real. I could see someone going to some extent to do this, and just for kicks, I guess. So I'm going to say it's real.
John says it's real. John, do you have Alexa, by the way?
No, we do not.
Oh, okay. just wondering. Karen, how about you? What do you say?
I don't think it's real, because the comment about getting rid of your friend who's programming it, no, it's not real. You wrote a really good story.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Maybe. Okay, so Karen says it's a bluff. John says it's real. Let's check with the judges, and the judges say, congratulations this week. Again, go to John. That is a real story. Believe it or not, Karen, yeah, they said that it's probably your friends or your family members. So they said, to go and talk to them and feed them the riot act. But yeah, this is a common thing where people are waking up to the sound of farts in the middle of the night. I was hoping John had an Alexa, because in doing the story, I found out how to do this, but
Too bad you're thwarted on that, Paul. Too bad.
Sorry about that. Yeah. All right. So the score is 2-1.5. But points are doubled in round number 3. So that means Karen could conceivably pull up with 2.5 to 2 there if she gets story number 3 correct, and John doesn't. So let's see how they do. Officials at a state park in Michigan. Karen was up in Michigan, by the way, last week. You may have heard this story. Officials at a state park in Michigan have been getting complaints from campers who think there's a Bigfoot in the park that has been stealing their shoes, flip-flops, and especially their Crocs. Park rangers have been searching the campground and trails for strange footprints wearing flip-flops, and so far found nothing. However, one found a trail of Croc pieces and followed it to a fox den, where it appears a family of foxes with an affinity for footwear have been stashing the shoes for their baby foxes to play with and chew on. Crocs seem to be the foxes' favorites, and the parents are stealing them in pairs, since the rangers found only a few single shoes there. Until the baby foxes grow out of their chewing stage, the park officials recommend keeping your shoes on your feet or hanging them in the trees where you should be stashing your food to keep it away from the bears. Okay, so shoes disappearing at a state park in Michigan, and it turns out that it's foxes stealing them out of the tent. Real or bluff? Karen, we'll start with you.
It sounds so real to me. I'm going to say you couldn't have written a better story. It's real.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but we'll say we'll go with real. Karen says it's a real story. John, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's real also. I mean, I could foresee this, or I could imagine that, foxes would be doing that kind of thing. Sure. I say it's a real story.
Okay. I mean, before we go any further, John, do you wear Crocs?
Do not.
I didn't think that there were any Crocs in your closet, but I just wanted to check.
Oh, there definitely is not.
That's a crock.
That is a crock. No, that's a
So.
good guess by you there, Paul, for sure.
Okay, so Fox is stealing Crocs. Karen says it's real. John says it's real. Let's check with the judges, and the judges say, congratulations, you're both right. That means John, once again, had a perfect score this week of
Yes,
3
he
for
did.
3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess our studying paid off this week. So you're always a worthy opponent, though, Karen. It's always it's always a tough match, you know. So
Yeah.
It's funny. I always, we pick on John when he loses because he has to go with his lovely wife Annette and practice with their flashcards. Believe it or not, I was with some Ursuline nuns over the weekend, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it just reminded me of flashcards. I thought of the show. Where else? That's where we learned all about flashcards. We learned from flashcards while we were being taught by.
Yes, we certainly did.
Congratulations, John and Karen. You always come back, and even if you don't, you always have such great comments during Bluff the Co-Host. So that's we'll give you another half a point so you don't feel so bad.
Well, thanks.
Oh, very good, Karen. Very good.
And that means we've reached the end of another edition of What in the World, everybody's favorite weird news show. I want to thank Karen Hale, our media mogul, producer, co-host, all-around great person. Thanks for everything you do for us, for all of the podcast at newclevelandradio.net. I'm sure I speak for all of your coaching clients. Thank you for all the coaching tips that you give them. Please, everybody, visit newclevelandradio.net. Check out all the podcasts as well as ours. Check out Karen's coaching. And then who knows? She also has some fun comments on there. Karen has a little blog where she likes to talk about things going on in her life that are always interesting as well. So, you could spend hours just looking at newclevelandradio.net.
You sure could. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah. So by all means, do that. And then, of course, we couldn't do the show without my old buddy John DiNallo, with his sports, with his pithy comments, with his all-around trivia knowledge. Sorry.
That's a left-handed compliment, Paul, right there. Yeah.
There you go, John. Thanks so much for everything you do. And hope you have a good week. Any parting comments?
No, you're more than welcome. But it's always great to. In fact, everyone, I think. Well, I look forward to Bluff the Co-Host every week. It's really a good finale to always what we have is a great show. So it's always fitting and it's always appropriate. And let's keep it going.
You reminded me. I'm going to put out a challenge to some of our more esoteric listeners. If you can find a fish bobblehead, send me a photo. You don't have to send the bobblehead, but send me a photo. We can use it on John next week. And as always, those are the people I want to thank the most, and that's our listeners. Without you, we would not be doing this show. You're the ones that make it happen. You're the reason why we do it. We hope you have as much fun listening as we do putting on the show every week. I know I get great comments from our listeners who are on Facebook, and I appreciate all those. So that tells me that we're doing something good, and so hopefully we'll have the opportunity to continue to do that good with What in the World. And on that note, I think I'm going to sign off for this week. We're on the same time next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we are.
Holidays or anything coming up yet, so that's it. Let's say goodbye.
And for all our listeners,
week, everybody. Have a
for
great
all
week.
our listeners, we have a new newsletter coming out. So if you want to receive the newsletter, all you have to do is either contact Paul on Facebook with your email address, he'll send it to me, or email newclevelandradio@gmail.com, and you will get added to the newsletter.
Oh, great. Yeah, in fact, you can, if you go to paulseaburn.com, my website, I have a link to newclevelandradio.net. So you can, any way you do it, you can find a link. And that sounds interesting. I'm going to go sign up right now.
I appreciate it. All right. Have a great